A millionaire encounters a girl on the street and discovers an amazing secret that changes every. Daniel Hughes shuffled through the polished corridors of his Chicago high-rise, the weight of the world looming on his shoulders. Despite the millions in his bank account, he had never felt so hollow. The relentless pursuit of success in the tech industry had produced an empire, but at a cost. The laughter and warmth of his hometown haunted him, a ghostly echo reminding him of the life he abandoned. He yearned for connection, but as he sat in his glass office, hemmed in by stock market reports and quarterly projections, an unshakable void gnawed at him. One ordinary afternoon, seeking some semblance of solace, he wandered into Lincoln Park, hoping nature would drown out the noise of the corporate grind. And it was there, amidst the vibrant green and distant city sounds, that he beheld Mia. The young woman, full of life, sold handmade crafts from a blanket spread on the grass. Her laughter rang out like music, drawing him in, reminding him of simpler days. She radiated hope, passion, and a fierce determination that felt familiar yet distant. As they spoke, her stories unfolded: a single mother, younger siblings, and an undeterred spirit navigating life post-tragedy. Daniel felt a tug in his chest, an old yearning for connection anchored back into his heart. He was captivated by her perseverance, fighting her own battles, daily hardships that he had shielded himself from through wealth. Yet he hesitated. Who was he to step into her world, a world so far removed from the sanitized existence he created? His carefully curated life felt like an elaborate facade, a gilded cage he was ensnared within. Before they parted, Mia flashed him a brilliant smile, leaving him unsettled with a barrage of emotions he thought he had mastered. He questioned everything: was he truly a self-made man, or was it his privilege that had paved the way? Did he even deserve the life he lived? Just then, the buzzing from his phone jolted him back to reality. Reminders of meetings and decisions awaited. With each notification, the chaos returned to the forefront of his mind, threatening to engulf the tranquility this brief encounter had ignited. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel found himself seeking Mia out, her resilience compelling him to face the uncomfortable truths of his existence. As their bond deepened, he finally invited her to a tech event, wanting to share the life he had constructed. But as they entered the glitzy venue, Mia's expression shifted, burdened by the reality of his world, a stark contrast to her own struggles. The admiration in her eyes began to cloud with confusion and conflict. Then came the shocking revelation: her late father had played a key role in the technology that had fueled Daniel's success. The knowledge crashed over him like a tidal wave, forcing him into a moral dilemma. He had built his life from ambition, yet what had he sacrificed to rise? Should he reveal the truth, shatter the connection he forged with Mia, or continue cloaked in silence? As they both stood at this emotional crossroad, the question loomed: would he ever bridge the chasm between their realities, or would the very roots of his success sever their bond forever? As Daniel fought with his past, every moment with Mia became imbued with tension, leaving him breathless at the precipice of transformation. The weight of their shared journey pressed down as he pondered whether love could truly thrive amidst privilege and sacrifice, or if this was a story doomed to repeat itself, a bitter echo from a past he couldn't leave behind. Daniel stood in the luxurious confines of his office, the skyline glinting through the glass walls, yet he felt like a mere spectator in his own life. He gazed at the sprawling city below, each twinkling light a reminder of the connections he had severed in his relentless climb to the top. The revelation about Mia's father haunted him, a constant reminder that his success had a human cost. It gnawed at him, forcing him to reconsider the very principles that had guided him. The next morning, he resolved to confront the lie that had taken root within him. As the sun rose, showering the city in a golden light, he felt an unexpected rush of determination. He wanted to share his truth with Mia, but dread coiled in his stomach. Would she see him as the fraud he feared he was? Would the affection that had blossomed between them wilt in the harsh light of reality? Hours passed, and he filled his day with meaningless meetings and presentations. Each moment dragging heavier than the last. He was disconnected, his mind racing, not just with the anxiety of what lay ahead, but also with the thrill of what could be. That evening, as he paced in his apartment, he realized that hiding from the truth was no longer an option. The weight of his silence suffocated him. If he truly wanted to embrace the connection he found with Mia, it required authenticity, a leap into vulnerability that felt terrifying yet liberating. He pictured her smile, the fire in her eyes, and the strength of her voice. She deserved honesty, more than a gilded version of himself. With shaky hands, he dialed her number. Each ring echoed in his ears, amplifying his fear. When she answered, that familiar warmth rushed back, soothing his frazzled nerves. They agreed to meet in Lincoln Park, the site of their first encounter, and he felt a jolt of electricity course through him at the thought. As he approached their meeting spot, Daniel's heart raced. The park, with its vibrant colors and fragrant air, once again felt like an oasis amidst the chaos of his life. He spotted Mia sitting on the same blanket, the sunlight casting a halo around her. She looked radiant, but when she saw him, a quiet apprehension flickered across her face. "Hey," he greeted, his voice more tentative than he intended. "Hey," she replied, her cheer muted by an undercurrent of concern. "You seem distant lately." "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything." He took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I need to tell you something, and it might change how you see me." Mia's brows knitted together, worry lining her features. "What is it?" "I've been successful because of my ambition, but your father was a part of that success. I didn't start this journey knowing how intertwined our lives were." The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, each syllable a release of the burden he had carried. The silence hung heavily between them, tension thick enough to cut. Daniel watched as emotions flitted across Mia's face, confusion, hurt, anger, each moment twisting his stomach into knots. "I don't," she began, her voice a whisper. "Did you know? Did you even care?" Her words landed like a punch to his gut. He opened his mouth, then closed it, desperately searching for the right response, but nothing came. A realization hit him: he needed to confront not only Mia's feelings but also the man he'd become. This was more than a revelation, it was a stark challenge to redefine what success meant in his life. It needed to be regained through integrity, connection, and truth. With Mia's eyes locked on him, the stakes of their relationship surged, leaving everything hanging in the balance. Daniel realized they stood before a definitive moment. Failure to bridge this gap could drive them apart forever. But before he could gather his thoughts and fend off his rising panic, a shrill notification echoed from his phone in his pocket. It vibrated insistently, pulling him from this intense emotional battleground. This was a reminder of the world outside, a world that felt increasingly distant and irrelevant as he faced his greatest challenge. Yet, the moment stretched, an invitation for honesty hissing between them. Would he take the plunge, or would fear consume him whole? This was a conversation that could redefine everything, and as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Daniel knew that it was now or never. Daniel's phone buzzed again, an irritating reminder of obligations he was barely able to comprehend in this heavy moment. Yet, the device became a lifeline, dragging him back momentarily to the reality he had erected, a world measured in profits and successes that now felt suffocating. With a swift motion, he silenced it, needing to focus on the uncertain terrain of his interaction with Mia, a professional in its own right, strategic, calculated, poignant. As he met her gaze once more, it was as if the weight of the moment transcended mere dialogues. He was not just there to share a burden, he was there to witness the truth that had eluded him for so long. Could he rise to challenge himself? Would this ordeal refine him or reveal a fatal flaw? "Mia," he began tentatively, drawing on the traces of strength he felt dwindle under her scrutiny. "I didn't want my successes tainted by truth, and now I see they were never truly mine. I owe it to you, to us, to be real." His heart raced as he voiced the knot that had tightened in his chest. She remained silent, a storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. Daniel's mind aimed to project confidence, yet self-doubt clawed at his resolve. Despite his accomplishments, this moment demanded far more than transactional skill, it called for transparency he had long evaded. Instead of waiting for her reply, he pressed on, the urgency of vulnerability pushing him forward. Your father, he was my mentor, and I buried that to chase ambition. I thought success was a solitary journey, but standing here makes me realize it's about connection. It's about an understanding of what really matters. Mia's expression shifted, a blend of astonishment and caution. He could see questions formulating, her defense mechanisms coming into play. Would she reject the admission? Would she accuse him of manipulation? I don't want to run from my past anymore, or hide from what our connection might mean, he continued, each word costing him but also liberating him from an inner prison he constructed. This isn't just about who I am, it's also about who I want to become. Through her silence, he noticed her body language shift and unfolding, as if she were contemplating his words not as accusations but as an invitation to explore potential paths ahead. Would this moment foster maturity between them, or would doubts overshadow their budding intimacy? Then came the question that echoed through the hesitating air, why now? The question struck him deeply. He felt the heat rising from a freshly ignited introspection. The pursuit of success hadn't prepared him for intimacy, but losing it nearly shook him awake. Because I realized that real growth doesn't come from power and wealth, it comes from understanding the impact of our choices on others, realizing how they affect the people around us. This connection isn't a footnote to my career, it's pivotal. She studied him, her frown softening, just a little. Daniel caught a glimmer, curiosity flickering like a candle against the wind. He held on to it, each moment stretching into eternity, yet, the realization that the road ahead was paved with uncertainty remained. If he were to forge a deeper bond with Mia based on truth, he must hold space for her feelings, too. Each turned page could stress his resolve, and he feared the outcome would threaten everything he claimed to have built up to this point. Mia, I want to know your truth too, he pressed, hoping to bridge the enormity of their divide with shared honesty. Who do you want me to be? But just as anticipation twisted within him, her phone buzzed, breaking through the heightened tension. What if external distractions, the noise of their lives, drowned out this critical dialogue as too many had done before? Taking the perturbation as a cue, he leaned forward, aware that the stakes transcended the personal. This was an intersection of their lives and destinies that required navigating with care. Daniel inhaled deeply, sensing the fragile balance of emotions held tight within the atmosphere they had created. With uncertainty looming, he could feel opportunity slipping. Would she step forward, or would she step back once more, his entire being electrified with the weight of potential change and discovery? As she hesitated, the answer hidden beneath layers of unresolved history, Daniel understood this moment could unravel or deepen a choice that would define what success meant to him moving forward. With his hand trembling slightly, he reached for hers, prepared to tumble into this unknown territory together, when the unthinkable happened. A shadow emerged behind them, as an unexpected figure approached, a chilling reminder of his past, determined to drag him back, as if fate demanded he address unfinished business. Daniel's instincts kicked in as he turned to face the figure approaching from the shadows. His heart thundered, both from fear and the remnants of emotional vulnerability he had just laid bare to Mia. The chilling realization that the past could invade this fragile moment consumed him. The figure's outline sharpened in the dim light. It was Kyle, his former business partner, someone who understood the depths of Daniel's ambition and the darkness that had lurked beneath it. An emotionless expression settled on Kyle's face, one that Daniel had grown to recognize as intimidation veiled in power. This confrontation had the potential to shatter everything he was working to build with Mia. What are you doing here? Daniel's voice barely concealed the tension brewing within him. He sensed the urgency of the moment increase, straining against the unyielding hands of fate. I could ask you the same, Kyle replied coolly, his gaze flicking to Mia with interest, assessing the nature of the interruption. Though it's clear you found a distraction from your little crisis. What a change from the top of the world. The shift in focus forced Daniel to swallow the knot in his throat. This wasn't he about Kyle's disdainful jabs or the choices Daniel had made in the ruthless world of business. No, it was about what lay within him now. He had just begun to explore honesty, and here stood someone who thrived on deceit. "I'm not interested in your games anymore," Daniel asserted, knowing that to back down would undermine everything he was learning about himself. "I'm starting to understand what truly matters, and that's not you or any of this." Mia's startled glance caught Daniel off guard. He wondered if she was perceiving the disarray of his past life, its toxic roots trying to ensnare him again. The fortuitous connection they had just initiated could risk unraveling if he allowed Kyle's darkness to seep back into his narrative. "Oh, but have you really changed?" Kyle taunted, a smirk forming at the edges of his mouth. "You think a moment of weakness defines you? You really believe you can turn your back on everything you've built?" Daniel felt the challenge coil in Kyle's words, tightening around the core of his newfound principles. Instinctually, he glanced at Mia, searching her eyes for reflection, and there it was. A surge of silent support radiated from her, lending him strength when he needed it most. "Yes," Daniel replied, summoning unwavering conviction. "Because I am ready to make choices that reflect who I want to be, no longer dictated by the hunger for power or validation. I aspire to no real connection, and I will not let you drag me back." At this moment, in front of both his past and his potential future, clarity struck. For too long, he had surrendered his identity to the expectations of the corporate battlefield. Daniel felt an ascending wave of personal growth wash over him, sculpted in sincerity. Kyle took a step forward, agitated, the facade of control faltering. "You're a fool, Daniel. There's no room for weakness in our world." With a surge of determination, Daniel shook his head firmly. "Maybe that's the problem. You confuse what's real with what's powerful. I refuse that notion moving forward." An unexpected silence enveloped them, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Daniel's heartbeat slowed, awareness sharpening as he held his ground. Mia stepped beside him, her presence a silent ally, a reminder that he was not alone. This was his fight, but it was also theirs together, a perspective path forged in authenticity rather than in hollow victories. As Kyle's face twisted into irritation, Daniel sensed the battle ahead was not just a confrontation with his past, but a defining moment that warranted both accountability and growth. "I don't want to revisit who I was, I want to become who I'm meant to be. And I invite you, Kyle, to witness that transformation whether you accept it or not," Daniel declared, the truth pouring from his voice, vibrating with newfound resolve. Kyle sneered, an affronted expression clouding his features. Frustration burning within. "You'll regret this, Daniel. You can't escape what you were born into." "I'm not running away," Daniel retorted, confidence bolstered by clarity. "I'm finally stepping toward something real." The confrontation lingered like an electric atmosphere, teetering on the edge of discretion. In this clash of past versus present, Daniel stood resolute, understanding the stakes of personal evolution. But the moment was intermingled with vulnerability and precarious connection. Kyle's sudden turbulence could hijack this night in an instant, and Daniel knew their energies would collide, forcing him to navigate a path he had yet to fully comprehend. Then, just as the tension crackled high with raw emotion, the stakes surged higher when Kyle whispered low, almost menacingly, "You have no idea what you're truly getting into." The implication swept over Daniel. The past was not so easily shaken off. He sensed that the truth still lay unexamined, an intricate part of this unfolding saga, and he would have to confront it. The choice had been laid bare before him, and the road forward became a jagged labyrinth of potential. Would this confrontation unearth another layer of his past, forcing him to reveal more about himself, or would it only deepen the shadows lurking behind the surface? Determined, Daniel took a breath and prepared for the fallout, ready to redefine the essence of his story once and for all. With that lingering tension, Daniel recognized he stood at a precipice. The confrontation of truth loomed larger than any obstacle he had faced, and the choices he would make next would indelibly shape the course of his future. As the darkness of his past breathed down his neck, he was about to discover the lengths to which he would go to forge a new identity and the profound consequences that awaited him. The electric silence echoed in the wake of Kyle's words, wrapping around Daniel like a tightening noose. He could feel Mia's presence beside him, a grounding force amidst the tempest swirling within. Each pulse of uncertainty radiated through him, a reminder of the battles fought in the shadows of his past. Yet, this confrontation felt different. This was not merely about defending himself against Kyle, it was about asserting his new identity. "Maybe I don't need to know everything," Daniel replied, forcing his voice to remain steady, "but I know enough to pursue a life that's authentic. I'm not afraid of what you think will happen, I'm ready to discover what I'm capable of." With a flicker of disappointment, Kyle's facade showed cracks. "You're singing about authenticity in a world that rewards manipulation. Tell me, how do you plan to survive without the skills I taught you?" The memories of their shared past flashed in Daniel's mind, moments of tight deal-making and empty successes. Those memories had been heavy, but now, they felt like flotsam bobbing in a vast ocean of clarity. "Survival was your metric, Kyle, not mine. I'll find strength in trust, in genuine relationships." The air thickened, moments stretched as they both sized each other up. Kyle's quiet shock morphed into an expression of scorn mixed with disbelief, as if Daniel had disclosed an unfathomable secret. "And you think that's enough? Do you truly believe you can lead without wielding power or intimidation?" The question lingered, hauntingly familiar. Daniel could have given in, slipped back into the mindset that had once ruled him. But he felt the flicker of commitment burning bright in his core, bolstered by Mia's steady gaze. "It's funny, isn't it? You've mistaken strength for domination. I've learned that honesty can be the most potent weapon." With every assertion, Daniel felt the weight of his past retreating. Each word became a brick in the wall he was constructing against Kyle's influence. Challenges were still ahead, and vulnerability still threaded through him, but he sensed those feelings shifting, transforming from chains to opportunities. Mia stepped ever so slightly closer, the warmth emanating from her reassurance bolstering Daniel's resolve. How could he not recognize the power present in such straightforward connection? That connection was an intricate part of his evolution. Kyle, visibly agitated, clenched his jaw as if chewing on his own frustrations. "Are you prepared for the fallout, Daniel? People like us never get to walk away without scars." Daniel met Kyle's gaze without flinching, the intensity of their standoff charging the moments with palpable tension. "I might yet to realize all that I can endure. But I am determined to leave the past behind. I won't dwell in those scars any longer, I'm ready for new battles." With that passionate declaration, he felt the familiar sensation of empowerment wash over him, one that had long been absent in the corporate world. The battle wasn't only external, it was profoundly personal. He understood that confronting Kyle was also about dissecting his old self, the ambitious but hollow version rooted deep in fear. Mia's quiet acknowledgement seemed to illuminate the corner of Daniel's vision. A life dedicated to growth, connection, and authenticity awaited him. The gauntlet had been thrown, and while the road twisted ahead, Daniel saw flashes of a bright destination. "Leave, Kyle," Daniel asserted, his voice magnified with newfound assurance. "I'm not the man you once knew. You have no grip on who I'm becoming." The tension crackled as Kyle's features contorted into an emulsion of rage and disbelief. "You won't get far without knowing your past, Daniel. That truth will hunt you down." As Kyle turned and began to retreat into the intoxicating darkness, Daniel exhaled, savoring the fleeting taste of freedom. The path ahead remained shrouded in shadows, and the sense of vulnerability tugged at him. Yet, a profound realization crystallized in that moment: to step forward meant embracing the potential for growth, even when fear lingered like an unruly ghost. Now, with each choice he had made, Daniel felt a tickle of excitement merging with uncertainty. Would the choices he embraced guide him toward a future shaped by connection, or would the remnants of his past rise to clash again? A sudden vibration in his pocket broke his contemplation. It was a reminder of business, a call that could shift everything again. Daniel paused, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of every decision pressing against him. As he prepared to answer, he knew he was not just responding to a call, he was at a crossroads that could shift his trajectory forever, setting him on a new path he had yet to define. Was he ready to respond, knowing that every choice would chain him to the future he was just beginning to sculpt for himself? Only one way to find out. Daniel's hand hovered over his phone, breath hitching as the call became an inflection point, a decisive moment swirling with both unease and anticipation. He hadn't yet composed himself to tackle whatever was on the other end, but the sensation of responsibility loomed heavily. The energy from his confrontation with Kyle still crackled in his veins, but remnants of doubt flickered like distant stars. Had he truly shifted his path, or was he merely deluding himself? Swallowing hard, he answered, bracing for the unknown while forcing his voice to sound steady. "Hello. Daniel, it's Claire from the office." The voice came, crisp and professional, a tether back to the corporate world he was trying to distance himself from. "We need to discuss projections for the next quarter. Your insights on our last pitch are critical." The relentless demands of his job, now mixed with the clarity he had just discovered, ignited a war within him. Claire's request tugged at the familiar strings of obligation, but instead of feeling chained, Daniel sensed the gilded opportunity for change shimmering before him. "Yeah, about that," he started, grounding himself in the knowledge that his reply could subtly redefine the way he navigated his professional realm. "We need to think beyond the budget constraints or the typical strategies, Claire," he continued, surprising even himself. "Let us explore new methods that align with what our clients genuinely value. It's not just about revenue anymore, it's about cultivating meaningful partnerships." A pause echoed on the line before Claire replied, skepticism dancing in her voice. "That's a significant departure from our usual approach." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. It's time we embrace authenticity in how we connect," he asserted, heart racing fiercely at the prospect of initiating a transformation that had long hovered at the fringes of his consciousness. As he spoke, visions of his past's empty successes flashed through him. Daniel had once feared the unpredictability of vulnerability, however, with every sentence, he unraveled that fear, confronting it head-on. Each word echoed with conviction, it reaffirmed his budding belief in the power of trust over manipulation. After the call ended, Daniel reflected on how liberating it had felt to voice that belief. The thrill of uncharted territory surged through him, tension tangling wonderfully with eagerness. This was not just professional development, it was a personal renaissance. Mia's light touch on his shoulder brought him back to the present. "You handled that well," she said, her smile warm and encouraging. "I can see the difference in you already." "Thanks," he replied, a sense of pride swelling within him. "But it's just the start. I need to keep pursuing this sense of authenticity, not only in speaking but in everything I do." Mia nodded, her eyes reflecting an understanding that ran deeper than words. Those moments of connection ignited something new within him, an awareness that vulnerability had always been perceived as a weakness when, in truth, it was the truest form of strength. As day turned to twilight, Daniel's thoughts wandered. What would living an authentic life demand of him next? Would he need to confront the scars Kyle spoke of, or was it time to forge a future unbound by the past? It began to feel clear that the path was anything but predictable. There was undeniably a storm gathering on the horizon, one that would not simply revolve around corporate negotiations but would encompass every facet of his existence. Just then, his phone vibrated again. Another message. He glanced at the screen, eyes widening as he read the name attached to the incoming text, Kyle. Heart racing anew, he realized this next chapter could bring forth the ultimate challenge. Would Kyle's shadow loom over his newfound clarity, or would he demonstrate that the past was just a stepping stone, not a prison? Daniel's determination surged. The answer to that question could redefine everything he thought he knew about himself. Daniel stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, the singular name on the screen a blaring reminder of unresolved tension and unforgotten pain. The anxiety in his chest tightened, creating a familiar knot. Was this the moment that would shatter the newfound clarity he had seized in his life? Or could it be a pivotal encounter that would fortify his resolve? Ignoring the surge of panic, he opened the message. "Hey, it's been a while. Can we talk? I think we have a lot to discuss." The words were simple, yet they hit him like a tidal wave. Reflecting on the weight of that friendship and the betrayal that fractured it, he realized Kyle held a key to a chapter of his life that refused to close. While a part of him instinctively recoiled, another part of burgeoning, more authentic Daniel felt a rush of adrenaline at the thought of confronting the source of his internal conflict, that he felt the pulse of fear mixed with a hint of curiosity. What could Kyle possibly want? Was he capable of owning up to the damage he had caused? Daniel knew that meeting Kyle would require a courage he was not sure he possessed, yet it was the very act of facing that fear that might solidify his path to authenticity. "Sure," he typed back, mind racing with considerations. "Where do you want to meet?" After a few moments, the reply came. "How about that cafe on Park Avenue? Same time as before." Daniel stared at the screen, memories flooding his mind, laughter, ambition, dreams shared over cups of coffee, and then the abrupt, bitter end of it all. Setting the stage for an impending confrontation felt like stepping onto a battlefield. He realized that he had two choices: to approach this meeting with the same shame-filled dread that had once governed him, or to use it as an opportunity for closure and affirmation of the person he was becoming. As he prepared for the encounter, Daniel felt the edges of nervousness dull and crystallize into determination. He spent the morning reflecting on how far he had come since his argument with Kyle, each thought reinforcing his commitment to authenticity and connection. Arriving at the cafe, the sense of coffee and baked pastries stirred something deep within him. This was his world now, not a place of retreat but a landscape ripe for new experiences. He wasn't retreating into the safety of old patterns, he was ready to navigate the complexity of honest emotions and relationship dynamics. When he spotted Kyle sitting at a corner table, an unsettling mixture of nostalgia and tension gripped him. Kyle looked as though he hadn't changed at all, a fine suit, expensively tailored, but Daniel could detect an undercurrent of discomfort coursing through him. As their eyes met, Daniel felt a flicker of something he had long buried, longing for reconnection, yet also the waves of hurt that had driven them apart. Approaching the table, Daniel steadied himself. This was not just a meeting. It was a defining moment that could either solidify his sense of self or unravel the fragile threads he had woven into his new life. "Hey," he greeted, keeping his tone even but wary. "Daniel." Kyle's voice was almost tentative, an unsettling contrast to the swagger he used to embody. "Thanks for coming." As they settled into the conversation, a complex dance of unresolved emotions began to unfold, weaving moments of vulnerability with lingering tension. Daniel sought to navigate this reclaimed space with the authenticity he had embraced, and as the discussion moved deeper, he quickly recognized the power of his voice, a stark contrast to the silence he had accepted for too long. With each exchange, it became clear that Kyle wasn't the only one facing demons. Would it be possible to rewrite this narrative, to forgive and be heard? The stakes were high. Tomorrow could carve out the future, an opportunity for forgiveness or a pathway back into the shadows of the past. As Daniel listened intently, he sensed that with each new revelation, they were moving toward a truth that could either liberate or further ensnare him. The emotional landscape they traversed felt treacherous yet undeniably transformative. "What are you really here to say?" Daniel ventured, summoning the courage to confront the unspoken. The air thickened with anticipation. Would Kyle's words rend open old wounds, or could they finally piece together the fragments of their shared history? The moment of truth loomed, pulsating with tension as sightlines danced between the haunted pasts and the uncertain futures that lay before them. Kyle's hesitation hung in the air, a weight that seemed to press down on both of them. Daniel could see the struggle in Kyle's eyes, the tension of confronting the past while grappling with the specter of guilt. It was a reflection Daniel was all too familiar with, a mirror held up to his own fears and regrets. "I've been thinking about what happened," Kyle began, his voice low and shaky. "I know I messed up. Our friendship, it meant a lot to me, and I took it for granted." Each word felt heavy, as if it bore the burden of years of silence. The vulnerability in Kyle's tone pierced through Daniel's initial defensiveness, prompting him to lean in, an act of curiosity wrapped in necessity. "Why now, Kyle? Why after all this time? Daniel asked, his emotions chaotic yet controlled. He was no longer the boy haunted by betrayal. He felt steadier, ready to face whatever Kyle had to say. Kyle ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit Daniel recognized from their school days. I realize that I've turned my back on a lot of people. But you, his gaze faltered before meeting Daniel's eyes again. I don't want to die with this regret. In that moment, something shifted within Daniel. It was painful, yet liberating. Kyle's admission wasn't just for Daniel, it was a cathartic release for him as well. Here was an opportunity, a significant moment to confront old grievances, assuming that both of them were brave enough to embrace the truth. Regret can be a ruthless teacher, Daniel replied, reflecting on his own journey toward self-discovery. But what are you actually willing to do about it? He was testing the waters, probing for sincerity. The stakes were immense, neither of them could afford to gloss over past transgressions again. Kyle inhaled deeply and clasped his hands. I don't expect your forgiveness immediately. I just want a chance to explain myself. What I did wasn't just reckless, it was selfish. I was chasing everything that glimmered, and I lost sight of what really mattered. Daniel could sense the rawness in Kyle's words, the truth behind his confession stirring memories of their shared aspirations. Despite the pain of betrayal, Daniel recalled moments of genuine connection, late-night talks, plans for the future, laughter that echoed through their lives. That's the difference between us, Daniel remarked, his tone steady. You chased the illusion of success, while I had to redefine what success meant to me after you left. It was painful, but it forced me to look at life through a different lens. Each word Daniel spoke felt like armor sealing his resolve, a confrontation with both Kyle and his own vulnerability. The pain wasn't eradicated, but it was no longer a shadow over his life. He was reclaiming his narrative, and in doing so, reshaping the contours of his relationship with Kyle. I have no idea if we can reconcile, Daniel continued. But I'm open to seeing if you're willing to do the work, because I don't want to close this chapter without understanding. If it's worth fighting for, then let us lay it all out there. Kyle offered a hesitant nod, relief mingling with newfound hope evident in his expression. I'd like that, Daniel. I honestly would. As they slowly began to unpack the layers of their fractured friendship, moments of clarity emerged, old memories reframed with new meaning. Daniel felt empowered, confident in his ability to articulate the hurt while also leaving room for healing. Every revelation was a brick he laid on a fragile bridge they were starting to build anew, but as they approached clarity, Daniel sensed there were still deeper waters to navigate. What would it take to dissolve the boundaries left over from their past? How would they confront the decisions that had shaped their present realities? Just as Daniel was beginning to believe a pathway to reconciliation lay within reach, Kyle hesitated, uncertainty clouding his brow. There is something I haven't told you, something that may change everything. The words hung heavy in the air between them. Daniel felt his heart race, the impending revelation promised to either transform their conversation or shatter it entirely. Whatever came next, it was a critical juncture in their tumultuous journey. Would they emerge stronger, or was this the tipping point that would push them apart once more? The air thickened with tension as Daniel's mind raced. The uncertainty in Kyle's expression felt like a storm brewing, ready to unleash its fury at any moment. He wasn't sure he was prepared for what might come next, but he knew they were at a crossroads. Both the weight of their past and the promise of their future hung in fragile equilibrium. What is it, Kyle? Daniel pressed, his voice steadying itself despite the tempest of anticipation. He could almost feel the pulsating energy between them, a stark reminder that they were both seeking something more than just closure. They were looking for redemption. Kyle's fidgeting hand stilled as he looked down, gathering thoughts that seemed to tumble over themselves inside him. It's about why I left, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. There was more than just ambition driving me away. I was scared, Daniel, terrified of what I would become if I stayed. Daniel drew in a breath, bracing himself as the truth began to unravel. Scared of the commitment? Scared of who they might become? The painful honesty not just in Kyle's gaze but within the reflection of his own ignited a flicker of understanding. What do you mean by that? Kyle met his eyes, the sincerity behind them attaching weight to his words. I didn't want to drag you down with me. I thought the best way to protect you was to push you away. When the opportunity to climb the ladder appeared, I grasped it, thinking I was sparing you from the potential mess that was my life. By leaving? The incredulousness of Daniel's response caught him off guard, opening the door to long-buried frustration. You thought abandoning our shared goals, our friendship, was the solution. You didn't just leave me, you left behind everything we dreamed about together. I know, and I can't change that, Kyle replied, emotions bubbling to the surface. But it was both cowardly and a form of desperation. The more successful I became, the closer I felt to losing myself. I started to drown in a sea of expectations and pretenses one I was afraid would swallow you too. Daniel felt a sharp ache in his chest as he processed Kyle's confession. It mirrored moments in his own life, when ambition subsisted alongside an unsettling fear of not just failing but being grotesquely successful without authenticity. You thought achieving your dreams would make you someone better, but it didn't. It just made you hide. I realize that now, Kyle admitted, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. But the pressure led me to make some terrible choices. And that's part of the truth I've avoided. The two men sat in silence, the enormity of what had been unveiled settling between them. This was an intersection where vulnerability met accountability. Do you think it's redeemable? Daniel asked, his voice quieter, the weight of the moment anchoring his thoughts. Can we reconcile who we were with who we are now? I need to prove it to you, Kyle answered, determination lacing his tone. This isn't just about us, it's about understanding who I am now, who we both are. I want to make amends, but it means I have to fully confront the shadows of my past and own them. Emboldened by the conversation, Daniel felt conviction surge through him. This was the path to rebuilding a bond that had once seemed irreparably shattered. Then let us do it, but this time, it's going to be different. We face it all, days of triumph and days of darkness. That's how growth happens. Their pact hung in the air, a fragile yet invigorated commitment. As they delved deeper into the conversation, Daniel felt the cracks in the foundation of his own life widen to permit light and reflection. What truths had he buried, masked by the bitterness of abandonment and resentment? He realized it was time to explore his own motivations to challenge the role he played in their story. Just as the sincerity of their conversation provided a glimmer of hope, Kyle's expression shifted once more, hinting at something deeper lurking under the surface. Before we move forward, Daniel, there's one last thing I need to tell you. Everything had a consequence, and I don't think you're prepared for what comes next. His heart raced again at the promise of revelation, the connection thicker than air. The stakes had suddenly risen, and Daniel realized the journey back to understanding was fraught with potential disaster. Would this revelation shatter everything he believed was salvageable, or would it open the door to the real healing they desperately needed? Days turned into weeks as Daniel navigated the labyrinth of his emotions, each encounter with Mia guiding him closer to an unvarnished truth that would shape his future. The weight of his past had begun to dissipate, replaced with a steely resolve to forge a new identity. After that fateful confrontation with Kyle, Daniel emerged fortified, yet eyes wide open to the complexities of redemption. At his next meeting with Mia, the air was thick with unspoken words. They settled under the expansive oak tree where it all began, the golden hues of sunset bathing the park in warmth. Mia looked at him, a curious spark in her eyes, searching for the man he was striving to become. Have you thought more about what we discussed? Daniel asked, his tone steadied with confidence, the tremors of apprehension long extinguished. I have, she replied, a smile creeping onto her lips. You've changed, Daniel. You seem different. I have to keep reminding myself that every step I take is a step toward who I choose to be, he said, threading his fingers together in resolve. And I want to share this journey with you because you inspire me to be better. A silence enveloped them, not filled with the weight of hidden truths but brimming with promise. It wasn't just Mia's validation that reinforced his progress, it was acknowledging the depths of vulnerability he once feared to tread. He now saw that vulnerability was the bedrock of true strength. You deserve more than someone who hides behind his success, Daniel continued, the words flowing from the newfound authenticity welled within him. I'd like to share my aspirations moving forward, not just craft an empire, but weave genuine connections that matter. The drive for success can't overshadow what life is really about. Mia's expression shifted as she took his words to heart, reflecting on her journey as well. I get that. We're all mixed up in our vulnerabilities. It's what shapes who we become, she said softly, her unwavering gaze never wavering from his. In that moment, Daniel grasped the enormity of their conversation, a metamorphosis forged not just from individual revelations but through the intertwining of two souls determined to face the complexities of their pasts together. It was exhilarating and liberating, a connection built on clarity and purpose. Days turned into weeks, each filled with deeper intentions and thoughtful conversations. Daniel secured a partnership with Mia to develop social initiatives, part of a multi-tiered plan that retained his focus on relationships while revitalizing the industry's standard practices. Together, they hosted workshops that educated aspiring entrepreneurs about authentic leadership based on mutual respect and shared values. When the company's quarterly results came in, Daniel felt a surge of pride, a clear reflection of their endeavors. The press release featured mentions of Mia's contributions and the transformative impact of their collaborative efforts. Recognition poured in, and Daniel thrived not merely as a leader but as a partner, a role he had long sought to embrace. His past was not forgotten, but it was part of the tapestry that now defined him. The shadows retreated as he learned to confront them with unwavering resolve. His growing friendship with Mia, now grounded in mutual respect, blossomed into something more profound. There was an innate appreciation within him for the authenticity she emulated. Her spirit kept his feet firmly grounded as he ventured into this uncharted territory of connection and empathy. Their achievements didn't go unnoticed. The acknowledgement from peers and critics reinforced Daniel's belief that leaving a legacy too often obscured by greed could be dismantled. At a major tech conference, he shared the stage with Mia to present their shared vision, a transformative model that integrated personal stories with business frameworks, highlighting the significance of empathy in the corporate sphere. As he stepped off the stage, he felt the applause reach deep into his core, a wave crashing over him, all the recognition he thought was fleeting crystallizing into solid appreciation and acceptance. More than accolades, this felt like home. Mia stood nearby, her eyes shimmering with pride and warmth. In her reflection, he saw a man who had achieved more than mere financial success. He accomplished confidence rooted in truth. And as he stepped towards her, he understood the true meaning of fulfillment. It was about connection, authenticity, and recognizing the value of shared journeys. Could you have imagined this was where we'd end up? Daniel mused, the smile on his lips echoing the joy swelling within him. Honestly? Not at all. But it feels right, she responded, laughter bubbling through the air, and you've proven that the best journeys can emerge from the most labyrinthine paths. As they moved forward into their next chapter, entwined not just as partners in business but anchored in shared growth, Daniel felt the full weight of his metamorphosis. His identity was now defined not by their past hauntings but by the vibrant possibilities that lay ahead. Daniel had conquered his fears, transformed his aspirations, and emerged victorious. This marked the beginning of something extraordinary that could not only change their lives individually but resonate in countless ways within the ever-evolving landscapes of authenticity, resilience, and love. Now is the time to embrace your story, to learn from your past and build connections that matter. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.